Republican Texas Congresswoman and member of both the House Small Business Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee, Beth Van Duyne, joins me. Congresswoman, you were at the border, I think, yesterday. You're from Texas. You represent Texas. Did you learn anything new yesterday?
Yeah, look, we talked to a lot of local reps. It was amazing when we got there, the sanitized version of the center. They had obviously sent everybody away to different areas, either across the state or into Arizona, because when we got there, where there had been thousands and thousands of people, they did not want to give us that opportunity to be able to capture that in photos or in videos. However, when you talk to the sheriffs, when you talk to the landowners, when you talk to those local elected officials, they were very clear. We are in a catastrophe situation right now. You know, we talk about the 5 Texans per day who are dying from fentanyl poisonings. You talk about the people who are coming over the border, the cartel activity, the slave trade activity. You know, they were very clear to say that we are not in an immigration situation. This is a slave trade situation. This is a sex trade catastrophe that we're seeing.
Well,
and it's all brought on by biased policy. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. The land going right up to the border, is that federal land or is that land that's privately owned or by a state or a Texas state land? I guess I assume it varies at different places.
It varies at different places. And actually, one of the bills that we had introduced last Congress was Texas had land that was at the border that they had sold to the federal government with the understanding under the Trump administration that that land was going to be used to build a wall.
Okay.
However,
why can't Texas and private ranchers or whatever, assuming there's some money, build a wall at the point where it's the private land or the state land, if the federal, and let the federal government deal with the buffer in between?
So that's what I'm saying. Texas actually owned land. They sold it to the federal government to build a wall, and now the federal government isn't building that wall. The bill that I had introduced last Congress would have allowed the federal government to force them to give that land back to Texas so that they could do exactly that, is build the wall. We also have land.
But at some point, even with that sold land, at some point, even if you sold the federal land, maybe that wasn't such a smart idea for Texas to do, is that as you move farther north, you're running into land that's either private or Texas is not owned by the federal government.
They could potentially do that. What they're trying to do right now, if you look at what Lone Star has done, if you look at what Texas has done, they've already spent $5 billion this year. In 2023, they spent $5 billion. They're increasing that to $6.5 billion to do the job the federal government should be doing. In Congress, we're not going to tell Texas what to do. I'm very proud, just being a resident of Texas, that they're taking this seriously, and they're looking at the people who are dying. They are looking at the immigration issues that are being caused in our state, and they're taking action. The fact is, they shouldn't have to do that. And when you've got mayors like Eric Adams in New York who are like, do what we say, but not as we do. We want to tell you in Texas, your cities, you need to be sanctuary cities. We want to tell you to be welcoming, but we're not going to do that. We're going to force this.
It's sort of interesting. I covered Katrina, obviously the hurricane in the south. They said every northern city and every northern state, because it was a crisis for the southern part of the United States, everybody pitched in. This is a crisis for the southern part of the United States, and the north just doesn't want to pitch in. I mean, they don't want anything to do with it. I mean, they're willing to help with a hurricane and flooding, but not this.
No, they don't want this to come to their state. They don't want this to come to their city. But they'll tell Texas how they should behave. But once they start feeling a little bit of the brunt of it, their requirement from the request is more money from the federal government, not a change in policy.
Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.